everybody. Welcome back to Cure for the Common Game. Today we're going to talk about Pir Toothy in deck number 401. But first, I want to give a shout out to all the patrons. Thank y'all so much. You make it possible. And thank y'all for just watching, sharing, liking, commenting. But Pir Toothy here is Battlebond gave us partner with, which it's hard to. It's like a creature split card in my mind. There's just about, I'm probably going to run, I can see me running a deck, a counter deck with just Pir, and most of the partner pairs you can probably see yourself running one or not the other, but for commander wise, using it as the commander, yeah, I'm probably going to run the pair simply because you get two colors out of it. And they are really good. There are a lot of ways to make this super powerful and just absolutely broken. Hardened scales, doubling season, all of those not in here. So, yeah, those are, man, it just seems like I can't have enough of those cards. But anyway, so let's get to it. It's +1/+1 counter shenanigans, and we will, I guess, start with ramp. Now, I've got Soul Ring, the Simic Signet, the Clue Stone, and the Moss Diamond for the rocks. And as far as land search, the Harrow, it's kind of ramp and color fixing at the same time. Hold on one second. I'm going to raise this up and see if I can't kill that glare. No? Okay. And then cultivate goes and gets you, probably your blue as well. But then we go into things like urban evolution, which it's hard to consider a ramp at 5 mana, but you get an extra land and you draw 3 cards, so it's Simic. It's hard not to play it in a Simic deck. But then we have things like Incubation Druid. Now, this is, in a +1/+1 counter deck, this is insane. Because more than likely we're just going to be tapping for 3 mana. Yeah. And then Fertilid. Now, Fertilid, the ability in this deck to replenish the counters is, once we use them, to keep fetching lands. So that's Fertilid is kind of an all-star. Now let's get into our +1/+1 counter creatures. Well, is that where we want to go first? Sure, why not? These are in no particular order, of course. Cloudfin Raptor. It's the perfect turn 1 play if you've got the island and the raptor in hand. If not, it's still a good, because I think everything in the deck is going to evolve the raptor. We have a Mana Gorger Hydra. Now, play or cast a spell, it gets a counter. This is, and it has trample, a strict upgrade to the elf. The elf used to be good, and then we got Mana Gorger. But Cytoplast Rootkin. Yeah, has graft, enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on each other creature you control that already has a 1/1 counter on it. So, it's just going to pump your team. And then, of course, you can spend 2 to move a counter from a creature onto this. So, that's not bad at all. We have a Feral Hydra. It does come into play with X counters on it, and anybody can put a 1/1 counter on it for 3 mana. Now, you can imagine that doesn't happen a whole lot. However, the only time I ever have seen it happen is when I was swinging, when a player was swinging with a Feral Hydra, and it was a few damage shy of killing the defender, so somebody else just pumped the mana into it and used my creature as their sword. Ivy Elemental, it's as big as you want. Now, Spike Weaver is a good one from Exodus. If y'all haven't seen the Exodus set review I did a while back, it's not bad. I believe Spike Weaver's in it. But he comes in with 3. Remove a counter from this to put a counter on a creature. And then you can remove a counter from this to fog. So that is a viable use early game when we are trying to, not die. Skyrider Patrol. You can pay Simic. If you do, put a 1/1 counter on another creature you control, and that creature gains flying to end of turn. Yeah. Make some big things fly. Fathom Mage. Evolve. There again, it's a 1/1, so just about everything's going to start off evolving it. And whenever a counter is placed on it, you get to draw a card. So this is a creature that gets bigger and it draws its cards. So, I mean, it hits all the marks. Chasm Skulker. Wow. So this is pairs perfectly with the last one. The whole 1/1 counters is just one big pile of synergy. I mean, and when it dies, you get all these squids equal the 1/1 counters that were on it. Of course, we have the Elusive Crassus. This is a pretty creature-heavy deck. Unblockable Evolve. So there again, having a unblockable guy that's going to be getting counters all the time is not bad. By the way, I feel like I am going to have to play this deck here at the house, where I have my giant dice box that it's hard for me to. It's not real portable, because woo-wee, there's a bunch of 1/1 count. I'm gonna need a bunch of dice for this deck. Lore Scale Codal. Whenever you draw a card, you put a counter on him. Not bad. Rishkar. He passes out 2 counters, and then each creature you control with a counter on it has add a green. So turns everything into Llanowars. Now, the beautiful part about Rishkar that I don't think it's not just 1/1 counters. That's what it. But if you look at that second line, each creature you control with a counter on it. So if you cast in obviously a different deck here, we're going off different style counters. Hey, that may be a good deck for Rishkar. Shapers of Nature. Mana : counter. Now, granted, 4 mana is a lot. But mana : counter in late game, if you draw Shapers of Nature on turn 32, I say 32 games just about don't go that long, but you know what I'm saying. If you draw it, you've got a ton of mana, you can, yeah. And then, of course, the blue side, you can remove counters to draw cards. Nimbus Swimmer's nothing special. It just flies. Has counters and flies. Zamet Guildmage. Now, yeah, it's got the remove a counter, draw a card thing, because that's evidently an ongoing theme for Simic. But that first ability, this turn, each creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional 1/1 counter on it. Living the Dream is just activating that a bunch of times. Hold on. If you activate it twice, you get 2 instances of this. So my logic tells me they would come in with 2 +1/+1 counters on it. I haven't researched this. I could be wrong, but it looks like, well, that's why I've got him in there. The Vine Lasher Kudzu. I guess he he might as well be partner paired with Fertilid, huh? We have Cozy's Trickster. Do you know how many times this happens? How many times people shuffle their library? We live in a format of fetch lands and evolving wilds and, I mean, all kinds of shuffle effects. I don't know. This could be just a totally, it could be a slot right here. This may be the slot where I put in Hardened Scales or Doubling Season, if, something like that when I do get them. Experiment 1. That's your green. turn 1 drop. And he can regenerate in a pinch. Voral of the Hulklade. Yeah, for each counter on target creature, let's face it, it's going to be creature in this deck. Yeah, so, Prime Speaker Zagana enters the battlefield with X1/1 counters on it, where X is the greatest power among other creatures you control. Wow. And then you draw cards equal to her power. Yeah, we couldn't do it without Prime Speaker. Also, we have Experiment Courage. I mean, we're talking about 1/1 counters here, right? And y'all remember that elf that taps for 3 if it's got a counter on it? Ooh. Yeah, nice. Experiment Courage is that was another thing that I had to do was I had to make Pir Toothy different from the Experiment Courage deck. So I built Experiment Courage as, Ooze Tribal. And then, of course, we have Hydroid Crassus. This is, who doesn't love a jellyfish Hydra Beast? But this does all the things, and I'm sure you can tell from what it's doing in Standard. Now, I don't follow Standard that much, but I guess I have been more since the Ravnica sets came out, because, I don't know, everybody loves Ravnica. But gaining life and drawing cards on a flying, trampling 1/1 counter, there's nothing to not like about this. And now, let's get into other things that some are creatures, some are not, that help out our tribe. Our tribe being creatures with 1/1 counters. It's got Graft, of course, but a creature with a counter on it gains flying. Creatures with 1/1 counters on it have reach. And it also has the ability to put a counter on itself. The Ceratok, creatures with 1/1 counters have trample. And then the newer version of it, Trollbred Guardian, passing out the trample again. The Plaxcaster Frogling. That's difficult to say. Wow, they gain Shroud till end of turn. That's not busted or anything. Then we can untap a creature with a 1/1 counter on it. So enough mana and this and Kraj, it's really good. Or wait a minute. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, the elf that if it has a 1/1 counter on it, taps for 3 mana. Oh no! I didn't plan that. I just stumbled into it. So if you tap that elf for 3 blue and use 2 of it to untap it, you've got infinite blue mana, folks. Infinite blue mana. Accidentally, I didn't, put it in the deck. I didn't build it that way, but I guess you pile enough synergy cards together and something's bound to happen like that. There's probably other stuff I haven't noticed. I've got a Gilder Baron. No real way to abuse the Gilder Baron, but it's in there to double them counters. And then, of course, I have a Simic Ascendancy. So powerhouse, it fuzzed up the camera there for a second. But if you get 20 counters, you win. Now, Doubling Season makes this dumb. Doubling Season doesn't make it operate twice as fast. It makes it operate 4 times as fast. So if you've got a Doubling Season in a 1/1 counter deck that's blue-green, you've got to have Simic Ascendancy. Because, all right, check this out. You put a +1/+1 counter on a creature. That get doubles to 2 +1/+1 counters. So you've had 2 +1/+1 counters hit creatures. And then you put that many growth counters on Simic Ascendancy, which doubles into 4. So 1 becomes 4. So with Doubling Season Simic Ascendancy, this is a 5 1/1 counter clock. So you just need to cast something like Incremental Growth. It puts 3 out there. Now, granted, they're spread around 1, 2, and 3. Um, BioShift will allow you to, it being an instant, how my intention for this and what I'm going to use it for is oh, you killed my dude. Well, all of his counters are not going to waste. They're going to this other guy now. We have give and take. It's not really. I hate to just throw it in there and be all sideways. It's, you're putting counters on and you're moving counters to draw that many cards. It's got fuse, so you can actually do both, which is a good technology I think that they come up with for split cards. We have Bread for the Hunt. Okay, that's probably most of our creatures. I'm going to say 99% of our creatures are going to have 1/1 counter on. If not, we can put it on there. Biogenic Upgrade is the, pass 3 counters out, then double the number of counters on each of those creatures. So obviously, with this one, we want to spread it out on 3 creatures to get the maximum amount of counters after we double. And then, of course, we have our 1/1 counter Fog. Yeah, it's a one-sided Fog. That seems really, really, really good. Now we're going to get into what I'm going to call the removal. So I'm running a negate. I'm not running a hard counter, actual counter spell. Not running that one because of the 2 blue specific. Although you could argue that a lot of these cards are, okay, maybe I just didn't think about it. I don't know. I'm more worried about non-creatures, obviously, but Counterspell would probably be better in the slot because I am running stuff like Plasm Capture, but that requires 2 green and 2 blue. But you're going to get all the mana, And of course, I'm running the Void Slime. There's another 2 blue. Evidently, I'm not scared of 2 blue. Although, that may be why I chose Negate, is because I'm already running so many things that require blue X that maybe I just need the counter ability for one specific. Anyway, overthinking probably. Broken Bond, I like. I like Broken Bond early. I do. Obviously when you still have lands in hand or when you draw a new hand, somebody's going to wheel, whatnot. I like it early because this allows you to turn 2, nuke a Soul Ring, and play a 3rd land. That's why I'm in love with the Broken Bond. Of course, we're running the Naturalize, Beast Within. Now we get into things like Hunt the Weak. This is a +1/+1 counter removal. So I put a counter on my creature, and then they fight something. So, and then we have Mutant's Prey with a counter, so that it's got to already have a counter. That's why it's only 1 mana, And then I have Inspiring Call. Now this is kind of anti-removal. I love these cards. Dana Roach is a big fan of cards that just protect your team, and I agree. We've got a lot of creatures, and the last thing you want to do is, take all those dice off those creatures when they get wrathed. But Inspiring Call, it's a decent one. Now the rest of this is we're gonna call just Simic stuff. Applied Biomancy. This is a slot. This is a slot for one of those cards that I am missing. But it does do, it's a combat trick or 2 combat tricks. We have Pir's Whim. Repeat after me. Everybody is a foe. Everybody is a foe. Now, I could see if you're playing Kingdoms and you're the knight, you could kind of telegraph to the king that you are his knight by, okay, king, you can do it too. Or maybe even better, if you're not the knight, let the king do it so the king will think that you are his knight. Outside of that, in a normal game, everybody is your foe. You don't have friends. They're all trying to kill you. With Simic Charm. It's a good charm. It's a giant growth. Your permanents gain hexproof, or bounce a creature to its owner's hand. More times than not, that's going to be one of ours to save it from dying. Pull from tomorrow. Producing mana doesn't appear to be an issue for the deck. Really neither is drawing cards. So, but pull from tomorrow, doesn't that... The problem I've always had with this card, it's good, but I think it's named wrong. Pull from tomorrow almost sounds like a take an extra turn spell. I've got Mystic Snake. Oh, there's another blue counter. Look at me. Contradicting myself. Trigon Predator is just probably one of the all-around best Simic creatures there are. There's no shortage of artifacts and enchantments. And it has evasion. We have Hadana's Climb. Here, let's pull that out so we can see the back of it. Being in combat, put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. If that creature has 3 or more counters, transform it. It transforms into the Winged Temple. Now, that's kind of busted. Pumping it up. Oh, and it also gets flying. What? And then we have Growth Spiral. Now, that probably should have been up with the Land Rat, but this is also everything you want to be doing. Now, we've got our non-basics that we do. Of course, I'm running Evolving Wilds, Terramorphic Expanse, Woodland Stream, the Guild Gate, the Bounce Land, Hinterland Harbor, Thornwood Falls, and then let's look at Alchemist Refuge, because that's it kind of lets us have a little bit of it's a Simic land version of the Ore. So, and you can turn it on whenever you want, although granted it costs you effectively 3 lands to do it. 2 mana plus this land. And then we have the Heart of Progress to get another counter on everything that entered the battlefield this turn, in case you find yourself having just a ridiculous amount of tokens or whatnot, creatures that interplay. But that is what I have got for Pir and Toothy, the kid and his imaginary friend. That is deck number 401. I do appreciate y'all watching, and thank y'all very much. I'm just thrilled that people would watch. I'm just rambling along. But I guess that's all I've got for today. So I believe now it is time to shuffle and cut.